Hello, good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well. It is 9 o'clock on Saturday. Therefore, first Saturday of the month, therefore it is an endometriosis webinar. I hope you are all well. Good morning to those of you who've joined me live. I'll just give it a couple of seconds because there's quite a few people registered on Eventbrite, and quite often it can take a while for them to come on through. So it's an exciting morning this morning. Not only do I love talking about endometriosis, anxiety is one of my favourite topics linked to endo. And as you can see, I've finally got Wi-Fi in my little treatment room. So is that the right way? Yeah. So welcome to my little sanctuary of loveliness. It's taken a year to get Wi-Fi in here, but it's finally in here. And it seems to be working properly, which is fabulous news. So this is the first webinar that is being broadcast live from my little treatment. So I'll do a lot of online work, and I do my teaching and training courses. I do see clients face to face. This is where my face to face clients come. So I can see the numbers coming through now. So I'm guessing everybody from Eventbrite is clicking through. So good morning, welcome. I saw that there was some familiar faces. So I should say I can't see you. I can't see your cameras. I don't know who's watching. I know who's registered, but I don't know who's watching. So I know that there were some familiar names. So good morning if you are watching. If you've seen me before, you are very welcome to Endometriosis and Anxiety webinar. Again, just say again, because I'm so proud of my little space that you can now see. First broadcast from Halcyon HQ, my little treatment room. For those of you who don't know me, I always start with a little bit of an introduction to be my journey with endometriosis. So I'll just share with you now this morning. So a little bit of an introduction to my journey with endometriosis, look at anxiety and why, so what this intrinsic link between endometriosis and anxiety looks like. I will then talk about the difference that we get with endometriosis, a symptom and a trigger and a cause as well. And then at the end of the webinar, I will give you my 5 tips to break the cycle and start. Actually, when I'm doing this presentation, I've actually put a couple of ones at the end, so you probably get back on top. In terms of breaking the cycle and start to feel better. I do right at the end, I do a little bit about how people can work with me, interested in my program as well, again, so that you can stay and you can get all the information that you want from the webinar. Working with me, you can disappear at the end and you don't miss any valuable details. I should say the chat, hang on, private chat is enabled, public chat. So there we go. So public chat should be available as well. Welcome, I can see both of them flash, so you're more welcome to message me during the webinar. Any questions. If you need anything clarified, then again, feel free to message me privately. It's up to you. So I am based in Lancashire. It's actually a bad morning. It's quite fun about these webinars, the weather, and I always say I'm not going to, and I have to again. So, yes, it's too bad in this morning. I hope we're turning into a nice sunny day. If you feel free to name and where you are based, and I know that people read today from overseas. Quite often we have people from India. In some replay as well, I should say. Feel free to introduce you. Any questions you have watching the replay, pop them in the chat, and they will get emailed through me, so I can still answer questions after this has not been. If that makes sense. So let's dive straight in. And like I say, feel free to introduce yourself. I'll tell you a little bit about me and endometriosis first. So, as with most growing up in the 80s and 90s, 80s, I started my period and didn't really know what that would look like. So I started my period at 12, and they were quite heavy. They were, again, sorry if you're having your breakfast. There'll be a few of those moments in this webinar. Quite potty, quite realised I wasn't in it as normal. I didn't realise. And whoever I talked to about it just kind of said part and parcel of mature, kind of put up and shut up. So many people have faced that attitude at one or many endo doctors on and off because of endometriosis symptoms. Obviously, I had anxiety, and I was diagnosed with anxiety when I was 18. So anxiety has been present throughout various degrees of severity teenage, and then at various into sort of growing up and into as well. So again, similar to other people I work with, I started sort of 20s, wasn't taken seriously at 18, and it took me to find a job. I think I was about 21, 22 when I actually listened to me properly. And again, I know this it's kind of quite a straightforward my journey. There are people who have it a lot worse than I did. But I was passed around again as people are from bowel to gynaecology specialists. She's my favourite one, isn't it? When you kind of passed to diagnosis after a laparoscopy. Got my diagnosis at age 24 around then. They various types of pills. They put me on Zoladex injection, which is the and that did work for at all. It made everything worse, but the injection did work for about 6 months. But it's horrific for me. They're not for everybody, but horrific. And whilst the benefits lasted about 6 months, when the symptoms came, they were actually worse. And it reflects a lot of other people's endo journeys. Started off, I was very lucky that I had people around me who were already into a world of sort of alternative medicine. My dad's cousin, a really successful homeopathic clinic in London. She had a lot of therapists working with her, so I was kind of new to the world. I was living in York at the time, and I met two people who were very into Reiki. I had met a Reiki master under her knew, and before that I met somebody who was just setting up a Reiki business, and so I found Reiki. Reiki helped me a lot, and that was my start of my journey. So I learnt Reiki and myself, and then started off adding different treatments for very selfishly for self-care over the years, and then started treating other people, and that kind of evolved into what I do now, which is your natural endometriosis specialist for other people to prevent or avoid delayed surgery or welfare as well. Next would be hysterectomy, and luckily I've never had any more or surgery. So that's 20 that I've managed that successfully. My endo successfully. You've become safe, so that's why I say I have a love-hate relationship with it. I wouldn't be with endometriosis. Started to love my endo. It has become endometriosis has become my life, and it is now my mission to educate people who can avoid or delay surgery quite naturally. So that's a little bit about me. Just check to see if the message in the chat. Not very shy, everybody. Feel free to pop in or diagnosis, or whether you just suspected endometriosis, how your journey's been, what your biggest challenges as well. Let me know. An anxiety website, so let me know sort of you feel your anxiety is intrinsically linked, or how it plays out at the moment for you. Feel pop it in. What medicine tells us. This is a slide that I use in my normal sort of signature website for a few months. It's kind of quite an important webinar. So Western medicine, as soon as we're diagnosed, I mean, the diagnosis is very stressful in itself, and it can cause a lot of anxiety. You know you've got these symptoms, you know that there's something wrong with your body, and quite often you'll be told actually nothing wrong, everything's fine, and it's just there's something. So you're gaslit is a modern phrase for it. I like my mother. Gaslight is like a modern phrase. It is. We are ignored, and we are believed a lot, which can cause a lot. Then when we get the diagnosis, we are kind of vindicated. Something wrong. We now have to put up. Actually, the label doesn't solve anything, because then we just go from one kind of anxiety because we're told that yes, you have endometriosis. We don't really know why you've got endometriosis. We don't really know what's caused endometriosis, and just know there's no cure. We're kind of told that we're never ever going to feel better than we feel now, which it's kind of like giving with one hand, giving the diagnosis, and then you're kind of wish to hold certainty, because they then tell you that there's nothing they can do for you, or nothing they can do guarantee results. So that's a different level of anxiety. It's a very, very harmful and can be quite damaging to, and I'll talk a lot about down the line. But kind of with endometriosis is why anxiety and endometriosis are intrinsically linked, because we start off from a place of huge anxiety where we're going through the journey, and that doesn't improve when we diagnosis. And it stays with us. We'll talk a little about that. Let's a little bit about what Eastern medicine tells us. What I do is a combination of different Eastern medicines. So Chinese medicine, a bit of all sorts of things, but predominantly Eastern medicine with a bit of Western philosophy in. This, I don't medicine, absolutely a place in our endometriosis care package. Eastern medicine tells us that to be well, flowing through as water flowing through as freely at all times. And I put it there. If you've been to my webinars, you'll know that I'm always an aisle to a river flowing. So if you have your blood and everything flowing through your body unobstructed, then it become like a river. So the river, the flow and energy will be nourished. The body will look like it does on that picture. It'll be orange, it'll be green, it'll be lush. Everything will be the natural, and everything will be fertile, for want of a better word. Everything will be functioning as it should. When we start to get blockages in our blood flow, in our flow, that's when we start to get poorly. So that's when we start to see in Chinese medicine that's termed stagnation. Excuse me, I'm just going to a little sip of water. Then usually the last 12 minutes. Excuse me, I don't know if anyone's had COVID. We had COVID before Christmas. And ever since it's been even more dodgy than normal. So what I can tell you about that in terms of Chinese medicine. That's another time. So yeah, blockages in our blood flow. That's when we start to get ill. So too much, because that's a whole in itself. Which is an example of a stagnation in terms of Chinese medicine. So stagnation, when we get stagnant, exactly the same as we use for an blockage on the earth. You can imagine a stream flowing nice and free and falls in front of it. What builds up behind the stream of the tree is stagnation. The water stagnates. It gets a little bit toxic, it gets a little bit icky, it gets a little bit smelly, it gets a little bit sludgy. Chinese medicine is kind of what's happening in our body. It translates as things gain inflammation, using new cysts, sort of in a stagnant pond, which is technical endometriosis. Obviously downstream as well, we get the drought, so we get things like brittle nails, brittle dry skin, symptomatic of endometriosis. Stagnation. This is stagnation where it's causing toxic buildup, where it's causing all of the nasty, icky things that are going on. Is the downstream effect, if you will. So that's what medicine tells us. So it's because everything that I do in terms of endometriosis, it's based around this theory of stagnation, and it's causing physical issues. So it's a physical blockage. It can be caused by, which I will go on and talk about. As well, I should say as well, so even if you have a diagnosis of endometriosis, things like this can impact on our health. Things exactly as I'll talk about in a bit, but if you're getting shoulder pain, if you get anxiety, hold your anxiety in your neck, muscles will kind of causing that blockage up. So it's not our abdomen. When I talk about endometriosis, I talk about this stagnation abdomen because that relates to endometriosis. But actually, especially when you have things like anxiety, you can put these blockages in place at any point of your body. So when you're getting shoulder pain, shoulder headaches, migraines, that's all around up elsewhere as well. So I talk a lot about prevalent endometriosis, but actually that happens wherever there's a block. Your blood flow. Qi is in Chinese terms, so it's not just Chinese. In alternative medicine, for want of a better phrase, medicines, Eastern medicine, based on this concept of chi. So chi is energy flow. It's kind of our life force. It's a tangible thing that we have as life. It's all about the biology of the body. Chi is that kind of quantifiable thing that's flowing, that will. Things like acupuncture based on chi flow, things you can get points based on meridians are the channels that the energy runs through. So acupuncture is based on meridians. Reiki is just general. People do use meridians and chakras in Reiki, but Reiki's based on flow, or things like acupuncture. They're all based on the concept of meridians and chakra. Indian medicine, we energy in chakras, which are energy points that sit in our being. So that's what Eastern medicine is based on. And when you get that blockage, that's when chi gets blocked. But it's something as well, so the blood gets blocked as well. So again, when we're talking about this a little bit more in the when we're talking about muscles tensing, that's causing a physical blockage. So the blood is kind of not flowing as freely flowing because you've got the physical blockage of the muscle, if you will, in a way. There's a message. In 2019, already stage 4. I've always been an anxious person, well before diagnosis. I feel it most when I wake up, like a bus in the stomach before I had to think. So I'll go on to talk about the stomach. Especially endometriosis, a lot of it is centred on us. It's where a distinct gut feeling that reflects the beliefs that anxiety impact first in our gut. So the Chinese place way more importance in our gut than they do our brain in terms of dealing with noticing, managing anxiety, because we believe that our emotional center is actually our gut. So your stomach, I talk a lot about that because that's really, really common. It's really good to recognize that, because that's the first step, and that's about towards the end of the webinar. That's one of the steps in order to recognize where your anxiety hits. So it's great that you've recognized that. I'm diagnosed in 2019, already stage 4. Yep. So knowledge, I think if the way endometriosis is diagnosed, you get endometriosis in 4 stages at the moment. So stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's progressive. It doesn't go from stage 2 to stage 3 to stage 4. As I won't say your name in the private chat, but as this company states, you can be diagnosed at stage 4, and it could be that it's a different type of endometriosis. It doesn't mean it's any more severe than stage 1, so you can have stage 2 endometriosis and still have the severity of symptoms at stage 4. It's a different type of endometriosis. It's oversimplified. I hope that makes sense. Yes, so it tells us that when you get blockages in your blood, that's when you start to see stagnation, and that's when you start to see symptoms of stagnation, which are things like pain, inflammation, all of those, everything that we get with it. That's when we start to see those symptoms happening. So endometriosis, this is a little bit of light in terms of the context for today's presentation. I believe endometriosis has a cause. I believe that, well, it obviously has a cause. I believe that for most people, it isn't just one thing. Most people have 2 or 3 causes of their endometriosis. I believe that if you understand your cause of endometriosis, if you understand the triggers of your endometriosis, then you can to unravel what endometriosis is to get better. I've helped one person that I can say categorically reduction in endometriosis, and that's because I've only ever worked with a person back and had after working with and her endometriosis pretty much stayed 1 cyst, 3. But you can get that. Like I say, I've 20 years. I've had 2 flare-ups in 20 years, which is anxiety related, and I'll go through that in a bit. So I also believe that to look beyond Western, so we kind of need dismiss what our Western medicine doctors in terms of, before you all shout at me, in terms of there is no better. That's a really, really difficult. Now, as I said, that just adds anxiety into the stress that you when you're going through the diagnosis pathway. We need to look past that. You can. Countless people out there who I feel tons than I did when I was diagnosis pathway. And if I believed that narrative, I could never. I probably would have had a history of 27 good where my life would have gone. So I'm glad that I had people there to support me, help me look beyond that. We need to look beyond what doctors tell us around diagnosis. Now, I'm not saying anti-surgery, I'm saying there's no place for surgery, but that narrative we're never going to feel better is really, really. I fully believe there's a place for complementary medicine in the pathway. I would do, because I believe wholeheartedly that you use it to feel better or get better as well. At the bottom, like, I understand what's causing endometriosis, and once you connect to your body, like name again, but like the fact that you start to recognise where your anxiety shows up first, possibly most difficult. Doing, you can understand your endometriosis, and you can start to overcome your endometriosis. They are my truths. That's what's underpinning the webinar today. Anxiety is linked to endometriosis. So, the first thing, as I've already alluded to, is that endometriosis can be a symptom. Anxiety is a symptom of endometriosis, but it can also be a cause. I don't know if I've done the slides. No, I haven't. But you basically just got me talking at you for a bit now. So it can be a symptom of endometriosis. It can be a endometriosis, and it can be a cause of endometriosis. So we'll look at symptom first. I'll be dot around it. And again, keep questions coming if you've got any talk about this. Let me know if you can send something. So symptom of endometriosis. So as I've already said, when we get symptom of endometriosis, or when we phrase that, when we start to understand that is doing our menstrual cycle and all the stuff we're getting is normal, in inverted commas, we're already at a heightened state, because we will have already been told that the pain period or pain run up to your period is normal. Already been told that there is nothing that is potential in our heads, that everybody else is fine, so why aren't we fine? That is already causing stress. Comment says a lot of people already have that anxiousness within them. Now that can be because you were an anxious child, so something's made you anxious as a child. Just be particularly sensitive people with anxiety. So it can be something that's of your person, can become your endometriosis itself. So if you're struggling with hormonal issues, as everybody does, not everybody has this hormonal element to their endometriosis, but if you're struggling with a hormone balance because of your endo, then that can cause anxiety. Living with pain causes anxiety. So if you're getting pain at any point in your menstrual cycle, if you're getting pain at ovulation or around menstruation, at any point, then it's going to cause anxiety as well. Endometriosis also can cause sleep apnea. The textbook can stop it getting. And that's because of the anxiety. That could be pain. That could be because of the bloating, the tenderness. Any of our symptoms can stop us sleeping. If we're not sleeping properly, it causes anxiety as well. So you've kind of got a vicious cycle there. You've got a vicious cycle. We'll look a little bit in a minute. We've got a vicious cycle of the anxiety, but then anxiety is already impacting on getting better, because it's things like stopping is going to, we're anxious about getting out, because that's the other thing as well with it. A lot of people get the bloating in the which can be 2 or 3 dress sizes just in a day, as Peter Kay would say, British reference for all the people. Yeah, it can see you go up 2 or 3 dress sizes in a day, and for all people that causes massive anxiety. We miss out on social occasions. We miss out on seeing. We miss out on so many things because we've got this anxiety about going. We maybe don't exercise because we are anxious in terms of the pain, or even the flooding. If you get the really heavy period, everybody does. But if you're getting symptoms, you get more anxious being out. You get anxious about time off work. You've got all anxiety is being caused by endometriosis. So your endometriosis would actually be responsible for causing a lot of the anxiety that you're feeling. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Anxiety is a symptom of endometriosis. Quite overlooked, and it's something that we really need to take seriously, because actually, especially if you're an anxious person already, a sensitivity with that anxiety that comes from endometriosis just pile on and pile on. And instantly, I would say anxiety and fatigue, but anxiety and fatigue are the main things that people need to see about, because it's anxiety. People feel X amount of years, people feel that they can put up with the pain of endometriosis, they can put up with the bloating because they're just quite wheat or whatever it is that they feel is bigger. Everything else seems to be manageable. The anxiety and the two things people come because I can't cope with, when they get to the point where, no, I need help because stroke fatigue, is the point where it's unmanageable. It's on my life. So it cannot be understated as a symptom of endometriosis. Interestingly as well, it's possibly one of the most difficult symptoms to get rid of when it's endometriosis. Have rid of it, a whole host of other endo symptoms start to clear up, and that will become apparent the more I talk about the next two issues. So that anxiety is a symptom. Do not dismiss the importance of anxiety symptoms, the root of your endometriosis. And again, that's right from the diagnostic path, and literally just talk to your friends about how, when they're either saying, yes, I get pain, or your mum never saying, no, that's normal. So it starts way before the diagnosis of endometriosis. Symptoms can trigger anxiety, but also that kind of non-acceptance or not listening to that gaslighting can cause anxiety as well. So, trigger. Anxiety is a trigger. So this is, again, it's very, very to me. I was with endometriosis, how well I was, but I diagnosed anxiety when I was 14. But like common, I had always been a shy child, very sensitive. That was always what I was a child. Yeah, always took it to be a negative, but I realised it isn't. But again, that's your anxiety, isn't it? I'm down, this happens literally in a room talking to myself. You will find that I go off a little time. And anxiety triggering endometriosis. So the way I work is I split everything into symptoms, and when if people who are look what it was, neat into boxes, and I is probably the big example of this. I've already looked at it as a symptom. It's also a trigger for endometriosis. Bear with me on this one. So, trigger for endometriosis. Basically, what happens, and this is where I'll start about the stomach. Go back to that picture of that lush greenery, the cheese, blood, everything's beautifully, everything's healthy, nothing going, everything's perfectly fine. That's the perfect body. I've never met anybody. I set up my company in 2008. I met anybody in 2008 who's had a perfect functioning body. That's probably because they come to me when they're the flow through there is through the body is keeping us well. That's what's keeping us healthy. That's what's keeping everything flowing properly. Start looking at blockage. I mentioned about the tight muscles. That's when we start to see stagnation. Because that's kind of the obvious one. Endometriosis. So, blockages to your and your blood, and I have to say to stay on track because I could from this to anxiety. So blockages in your cheek can be caused by all sorts. It can be caused by physical, like a fall off a horse or a fall off a bike, pelvis, tilted uteruses, uteri, I don't know, uteruses, I don't know. But yeah, so it causes from a physical point of view. However, anxiety also causes these blockages. Now, simplistic view of looking at fight or flight mechanisms inbuilt. So going back to prehistoric times when and being faced with kind of prehistoric scary things, have developed or had intrinsically this fight, basically a lifesaver. Same mechanism that if you looking down at night and you want to take a shortcut and you see, I don't know, this is really stereotypical, but if you see a gang of lads down a alley at night, it's that fight or flight mechanism that kicks in, and it's that fight or flight that says, oh, hang on, no, that's probably not a go down the well-lit way where that's your fight or flight mechanism kicking. Fight or flight mechanism has already identified there's a risk, having a kind of symptomatic approach to avoiding that risk. Also is going on that you might not be as aware of is that your body is makes physical change to get ready to run or to so fight or flight. Happening cognitively, you're kind of in the situation, making a decision, aware of the subconsciously your body going through a whole host. Again, this is kind of quite simplistic. What's happening is your body is ready to fight or flight. So your body, in terms of the muscles across your shoulders will be tense, because your arms will be tense because subconsciously you're getting ready to. In your legs get again, you're getting ready to run, so you've got some really big muscles in your legs. They start to tense up. So again, when we talk about anxiety with endometriosis, a lot of people get restless legs, a lot of people get heavy legs. A lot to do with the anxiety that's going on because your body is constantly in this. So your body, muscles around your shoulders, the muscles around your constantly tight because you're living with this anxiety. It's also happening, your body is prioritizing the systems that it needs, or I should say the systems that it doesn't need to. So if your body is getting ready to, the last thing it's thinking about is procreation. So one of the things that it stops giving energy to is your reproductive system. Abdomen, your body is taking nutrients. It's not nurturing as much as it would do ordinarily your reproductive system, which is why a lot of people, when we talk about fertility and stress, that's why stress impacts so much on fertility. The body, when it's stressed, thinking about reproduction, it's not your brain. Think about nurturing your reproductive system when actually it wants to get your legs moving to run away. This is a really simplistic reason about why it happens, but this is essentially what happens. Have just going back to the physicality, some big muscles running through our abdominal cavity, or running alongside our hips, pelvis. That's the word I'm looking for. Some very, very big muscles that run through our pelvis, that are connected to our pelvis, and these are all muscles that are activated fight or flight. So a lot of you will have muscles in various guises. Have the soleus muscle, which is a really important, but vastly the top of the body to the bottom of our body, and it runs through the pelvis. So stress. So when we're fight, when our bodies are stressed, when we are anxious, this source is now. If you have, again, I know that your previous comment about having, where is it? Yeah, about feeling it in your stomach. So what's happening is your stomach are tightening up because of the innate response to. So your glutes are tightening up in your bum, your glutes are tightening up, your quads are tightening up, and all of these pelvic muscles are getting tight because it's getting fight. You might want to, but everything kind of tightening up in this pelvic. So you feel that anxiety, you feel it in your get tightened. If you're living with anxiety, that means your muscles. What can also happen as well is you can force your body into both ways. The phrase, it's like anyway, it can cause, anyway, can't remember, brain fog. If anybody has had, that's a real COVID brain fog. So if we're down a lot of the time, because we're sitting down. So if our psoas muscles are tightening for reasons, that can actually have the impact of telling your mind that there's something to worry about as well, because in effect, putting your physically. So in the same way that relaxing your muscles and the abdomen and calming down can tell your mind to worry about. If your psoas muscle gets tight all the time, then that's the word I was looking for. First, your body can tell you something. The Chinese has put massive importance, as I've already said, the importance of our. So they actually split the gut to various. So the anxiety point is, I don't know if you can't see me really, but the anxiety point I'm trying to jump to is kind of at the top of the small intestine. So if your small intestine clock, your anxiety is 12 o'clock. And there's other emotions in there as well, fear and regret, kind of emotions that are sitting in our. But so that kind of anxiety point in our gut at 12 o'clock, that corresponds with all the plexus. So I'm talking about sort of energy centers, chakras, and our soul, our energetic system. And that sits in a very similar position to where Chinese say all our anxiety or believe our anxiety is held. So you've got a massive sort of reaction there in terms of reaction within the physical body to anxiety. So a lot of times anxious, you will feel it in the 12 o'clock position. You can also feel it lower down as well. So you've got lower down. You can also feel it if it's causing the pain in the feel it further as well. Now, what happens when you've got endometriosis? So that's kind of the response that our body has to fight, to stress and anxiety, is this fight or flight. And you can believe that constantly. That kind of doesn't go away. And that's in your resistance as well. So if you're living in stress and anxiety, so people who have anxiety, kind of sort of cruising about here in terms of resilience. If something's, then they'll, but it's easy to bring it back down again. If you're living with stress and anxiety, then you're up here a lot, already heightened anxiety. So if something is quite a thing, your anxiety is up here. Now, for somebody who isn't stress and anxiety, to get their anxiety up here would take a lot of stress and anxiety. Then it doesn't take a lot to get to that to really, really heightened point. Heightened point, that's when things are really acutely. And if you've got endometriosis as well, so again, we'll just focus on the abdomen here, but if you've got endometriosis, you've already got, especially if you've got stage 4, you've got that really deep tissue, that really deep, the adhesions, everything kind of stuck together. Sounds very pleasant, but everything's kind of bunched there. If you're suddenly tiny, it can happen with exercise, and this is why having, again, everybody's different. This does help people, but if you exercise and you're really muscles, you can pain. Your muscles may have endometriosis on themselves, but the tighter you're kind of getting that scar tissue. So I've got my finger, I don't know if you can see it, before me, I cut it last night on there. When I bend it, I can feel the pain because it's kind of knitting it together. Getting that in our endometriosis, getting that fear and anxiety, it's tensing up, which is moving that scab. As we start to relax, scab again. So we're kind of again, but every reaction in that moment is having an impact on your because of the like reaction to your bowels. It's having a reaction to everything is impacted by anxiety. So the more you are, like I say, you can be stressed, and a little stress trigger an endometriosis flare up because of the fact physically impacting. It's physically impacting on the endometriosis, but because it's then starting to cause a blockage, which is when we move from trigger to cause as well. So I'll just say a little bit more about trigger. So the only 2 flare-ups I've had in the last 20 years, the main flare, so I had a flare-up about, and time just seems to, anyway, 29, 30, I had a big flare-up. And I went through some tough times. Although I started my 2008, excuse me, talking about it, throat chakra. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I was working in health and social for a long time. And around age, around a really, really difficult time at work. I kind of worked long-term stress. It was about 6 months. And that's when I had endometriosis flare. As a large result of anxiety. There was other stuff as well. My diet wasn't good. I wasn't looking after myself. All the treatment techniques that I'd used in the previous 10 years because I was stressed and anxious. And there was an element of it which I'll talk about. But it's a major trigger for me. So my the bloating was the first thing. I didn't listen to my body. Great. Webinars before, you'll have heard me say, your body whisper so you don't scream. I ignored my body whisper. I ignored insomnia. I ignored sweaty palms. I ignored that every time I woke up, and I kind of tried to press on through it because we took the time. I'm a lot more aware of mental health now, but we're told a lot of that believe anxiety is a weakness. Actually, if we take some time off because of mental health, that's legitimate as safe and broken. I pushed on through, didn't listen to my body, and that resulted in huge anxiety issue, a mental health issue, but it also resulted in I'd had of my endometriosis for 10 years. Hormones were all over the place. Hormones are for me, but the anxiety was immense. I didn't listen to the bloating, all the symptoms. I ignored it. I tried to push on, and I had the worst flare-up I'd had for 10 years. Anxiety is a major trigger. I was in pain. I couldn't go for a walk every day like I had been doing. I wasn't looking after myself. So this is where the symptom of anxiety can hit again. So if you're feeling anxious, then the tendency, in terms of not in terms of valuable water, the tendency could be to drink a lot more. And it's when we're anxious because we more comfortable, we feel the starchy type food. Not necessarily a trigger for everybody, but it can be a trigger for people. The system is more sluggish, so we pick up a lot more food intolerance. Whereas normally might be okay to carrots, you may suddenly discover an intolerance to carrots, stressed and anxious because your stomach is a bit more toxic than your diet is impacting as well. All of these things all coming together in a vicious cycle. Anxiety is triggering a symptom of endometriosis even more. So you can look in the vicious cycle, which is why I say it's to break that cycle. And you can feel so much just from breaking that cycle. A cause of endometriosis, people I work with, and I actually include in this, and anxiety is of endometriosis as well. So when I was talking about, it's kind of the same as, basically it's the same trigger, but it's happened a long time. If you were an anxious child, if you suffered with anxiety when you were fight or flight, because something that gets as we get up to be older, but it's not just about as we get older with that intrinsic flight mechanism built into us. Normal, healthy, relaxed. I think I said at the beginning, but I'll just say that fight or flight is a natural reaction. It's a life-saving reaction. We don't want to get rid of that fight or flight, but what we do want to do is to bring it down. If we're struggling with it, we want to bring it down so it's not impacting. Healthy response. It's a good response at your risk. It's a good response to have. It's a vital response to have. It's what's kept us alive as a species for lots of years. Anyway, I digress. If you were an your body would have been in fight or flight right from a young age. So if you go back to what I was saying in terms of the impact of that, so your lowest muscle, your lower back, work with lots of people. Quite often I work with lots of people. Quite often I work with people who have lots of lower back. Now that can come from a bike or something, but actually what can happen is what does happen is over years, anxiousness, tension, as I've said, so things like your glutes tense up, your hamstrings, your quads tighten up, your shoulders up and out. All of that is impacting on your back, because your back, when everything's moving properly, back has a system going on in terms of how things have to lie. What's happening over time is that back, we call it a subluxation. It's nothing ever shown. X-ray, it's not as bad as like sponge, something like that. What can happen is some kind of just get a little bit of filter. So if one side, you can imagine it, you've always got two reactions when something's moving. You've got your muscles side that contract to move your finger in this example. Here, you've got these muscles here that have to relax in order to allow that muscle to pull down. What can happen is, obviously in your back, what can happen, that muscle is right on that side. This muscle will have to work doubly hard to push it down, and you can carry it yourself. Everything's my cramp to the last. Really, I won't hold my. But what basically happened, I was trying to tense the muscles, done too good a job. If you've got tense on one side, then the muscles on the other side will have to work in order to just do the. What happens over time is those muscles will develop even stronger. Muscles actually get weak because they're not used as often, and we're talking over years. It happens over a couple of months. What happens is start lower back problems, knee problems even. I nearly had to. I had an because cartilage problems when actually it was all the story. I will bore you with that, and that's not what we're here to talk about. But so you can see that if you're an anxious child, over the years of you growing up, you hit puberty, your body growing, then you can be. And this, I do not want this to be any way worse than the reality actually is, because we're just talking minute changes. Like I say, it would never show up on an X just to get aches every now and again. But you're kind of putting, you're not putting your body into fight or flight because of the anxiety, and over time that can cause slight shifts, slight blockages of chi. So we're about blockages in terms of tilted pelvis, tilted uterus, the tense muscles, the tense abdominal muscles, the tense back and muscles, causing and then getting anxiety with endometriosis symptoms as you're kind of from different whatever about 11 right 16 17, not being believed, stuff going on. You've got all your hormones that are raging through your body at that age, stresses of being a teen. That's just to this anxiety that you already have. So you're kind of building up this stuff in your stomach that's causing the blockages, if you will, in terms of child. So for a lot of people, like I say, I class myself as this anxiety. I do believe it's been a major cause of my only cause. We know people are born with endometriosis, we know that there's a hereditary link to endometriosis, we know that a hormonal link to endometriosis, we know that there's a endometriosis. There's lots of possible causes, more than one cause. But anxiety can be one of those causes. The same as it being a trigger before that. So, again, I nearly said your name, apologies. But it's working together like a timeline of when everything started. So you can start to what's your cause. So if anxiety was around a long time before your endometriosis, chances would be the causes of your endometriosis. I hope that makes sense. Any questions? I can only see the chat box. So let's this is resonating, let me know if this is making sense to everybody. Just have a break. Is all right, carry on. I'll just carry on because I know 2 hours is a long time to give up on a Saturday. So just if that's right with people, I am just going to have a quick drink. So again, feel free to pop in the chat where you're watching from, isn't it? So we're back. I thought I'd done the slides, so I did have. So we'll just rate it as a symptom of endometriosis. So we're getting pain, fatigue, we're getting insomnia, getting the impact on work life. I was talking about sort of missing out on social events, not seeing friends, maybe having to take time off work, all that as well as anxiety. So symptom of endometriosis. Anxiety is caused by our endometriosis. And I thought, so this is when I was talking, never going to feel soft, and we can wake up from endometriosis, feel rubbish. And because for years that endometriosis doesn't have a cure, you're never going to feel that can cause the endometriosis, the anxiety. So when you sort of feel this thing on a morning, you might be aware of what your brain's doing, of thoughts you're having subconsciously, but that's a major rhetoric. Never going to feel that rhetoric. Endometriosis is incurable, and you're stuck with it. That can really impact on our anxiety levels. So that's anxiety and endometriosis. The trigger 6 UK. I don't know. Again, I don't know why I'm obsessed with the weather. I'm obsessed with the weather and data. I don't know if you can hear the rain. Up down in Sussex, it's a lot. I actually spent a lot in Sussex in my younger years. I went to Gatwick Airport for a bit. Anyway, I digress. It's lovely to have you here. Anxiety trigger, and I'll just recap on this. Fight or flight response, perfectly healthy response to a stressful situation. It can have a physical and an emotional, as I've through. All of that also impacts on our hormones. Hormone imbalance has a lot to do with stress and anxiety. I'm actually working with a lady in a minute who came to me. She thought struggling with menopause, something advertised. I will have endometriosis, but she came to me as a referral from somebody who I'd worked with endo, who thought I could help her. And she's doctored that it's perimenopause. She's been by her friends, by her mom, that it's menopause. It isn't the end. It isn't. With her end of November, and we've already seen a shift in her cycle. She's having a lot healthier cycle. Anxiety has gone completely, but actually going on was pure anxiety. It was pure anxiety for years that was impacting on our hormone levels to the point where doctors diagnosed early menopause. And it isn't. She's fine. She's fine now. So yes, it has a huge impact on our body, a huge impact on our hormones, physical and emotional well-being is also impacting on our endometriosis. So it goes back again. Anxiety can be a trigger as well. Symptom. Triggering you and the symptom, then you're caught in this cycle of everything just getting worse. I hate the photo, it scares me a little. I don't know why I put that photo on there. That's can cause insomnia, I reckon. But yeah, so again, long term impact stress can be a cause of endometriosis. And again, physical and hormonal, exactly the same as a trigger. Before your menstrual cycle starts, you sort of develop a child, and that can be one of the causes for it. And to kind of being anxious isn't is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So we don't want to kind of change our personalities. We want that personality that may be causing our anxiety. If we are sensitive, quiet, if we are introverted, it's just about knowing ourselves, knowing our bodies, knowing ourselves, and in ways that embrace that with cutting out anxiety. Moving on to the last part of the presentation, we'll come to. So here we go. Coming to tip break cycle of anxiety and how to feel better. Start to feel better. So first thing to say, you can't just look at one aspect of endometriosis and manage endometriosis. You have to take, the word is overused, but for endometriosis it is entirely a holistic look at endometriosis. If you're going to manage it properly, to delay surgery, if you're going to avoid surgery, look at everything. Anxiety is a really, really good place to start, because if you have anxiety, if you stress, then that is the impacting endometriosis. So looking for one place to start to anxiety, I would say, is the place to start. So 5 top tips. So figure out anxiety in your endometriosis. So figure out whether for you it is anxious before your started. Are you anxious at times having an endometriosis flare, or is it purely a symptom of endometriosis? Now, for a lot of people, an endometriosis doesn't exist. They're living with the symptoms of endo every day, so it can be quite difficult to pick this. Sometimes a little bit like me coming, but if you yourself just start to pick that anxiety, all it has now, like I said, it can tick all 3 boxes. It can be a cause, a trigger, a symptom. That's me. Might be you as well, but for a lot of people it will tick all cause, symptom, trigger boxes. For a lot of people it will be a symptom. For a lot of people it could be a trigger. They've on their anxiety, so they don't really see it as a symptom anymore. But just get to know exactly what anxiety is for you and your endometriosis. Get to know anxiety triggers. This is going beyond endometriosis. So what else is a trigger for your anxiety? So I'm just thinking of the most recent lady I worked with. So we'll take the menopause. I'm sure she'd love to hear me call her that. The menopause lady example. So her anxiety was caused by, and menopause is a really good example here, because she was told that she was getting anxious about the fact that she was in menopause. That was true anxiety. However, she had long-term anxiety related to her parents, her mother in particular. That was a major trigger for her anxiety. This thing of underachieving stroke overachieving, that was, she had a constant dialogue that she wasn't good enough, so she had that caused a lot of anxiety. She was a people pleaser, so a person who was very eager to people, often to the detriment of her own desires and wishes. So she had all of that going on. So you can see how if you're that sort of person living in that time can cause a lot of anxiety. You're constantly worrying about other people. You're constantly worrying if you're doing well. Go to work. She's very good at her job. She's got a very high passion, which was a for stress. Very good at her job, and as part of the process, we went through about her job and her reviews and things, and she outstanding review of bosses, but it was one comment to me, like she was rubbish. She was working all the hours that almost that she was this triggering her anxiety. She was living at the level because of her desire to please. And again, we don't want to change. It makes her a very lovely person to be around. She's a very nice, gentle person. We don't want to change that. What we do want to do is reframe the thought. So we know what triggers are for your anxiety. If it's a trigger for your endometriosis, we can start to look at all of the triggers, which is why when you work with me, we look at everything. We look at work, we look at the whole picture of life. We can start to reduce all the triggers that you've got going on with your anxiety. We want to reduce the possibility of an anxiety flare as possible. So again, similar to figure out what works for you. So once you start to look at for anxiety, you can then start that. So again, and actually what I've missed out there, what in terms of triggers, get to know So what is your body trying to tell you before it gets to that heightened, that high fight or flight? What are the first symptoms of your stress and anxiety? Let's take some looking at, because quite often we know. So quite often, out of 10 is, oh yeah, I know when I'm stressed because, and it's sleep, because my tummy reacts. I get a dodgy tummy. Actually, there will be something before that. Isn't really whispering, that's your body talking. Something. So, for example, throat tightening up. That's quite an early warning. Of the hands, being a bit itchy, being thirsty a lot of the time, that restless legs, all of those kind of things we tend to overlook. So when you're looking at what triggers your anxiety, also look at what the signs of those triggers are. It could be that you're so attuned now to your tummy, if you recognise that link, that the way you feel it first. But chances are there's something previous to that going on. Fright in my tummy. The whole stuff that's gone on. So really important to understand your anxiety, how it manifests in your body, so you can good at the earliest stages. Starting off where you think the earliest stage is a place to start. This is not designed to start at all. So if you think, oh my goodness, how do I do what you think is your earliest point? So if it's your tummy, just go with your tummy. And as soon as you start to recognise that in your tummy, take it from there. We'll sort of, once you start to get to the look at other symptoms, not symptoms, but early warning signs your body's start to make your body whisper. This is your process, but it's so what works for you? So abdominal breathing is fast in terms of bringing anxiety levels, reducing that stress. It's on an emotional and a physical level. So what we're doing is, it's doing a few things. So when we get stressed and anxious, a lot of our work breathe from. So let me know if this resonates with you. A lot of people sort of shallow breathe all the time because they are so stressed. Their abdomen, they're tense, so they're not using the full capacity of their shallow breathing. When they're breathing from the part, so your chest is going up and down, breathing from your abdomen, so you're using the full extent of your nose, physically takes your body out of fight or flight. Your body is telling your mind about in fight or flight. That's when we start to go. And so we're breathing shallowly in fight or flight. So once we start to relax our body, breathe from the abdomen. So if you're lying down, if you have a hand on your chest, breathe up and down your chest, hands fairly static. If you're breathing down, you're physically your body out of fight or flight, telling your body, sorry, your body is, but there's nothing to worry about. So release all the have a fabulous, in your diaphragm, which can have a fabulous effect on your abdomen. Also increase circulation of air and blood and chi through your body. Blockage that's caused in you're increasing the oxygen intake to your brain. You're able to bring an element of rationality to the fear and the stress. It's not an easy thing to do, but practicing. I've put what works for you, question mark. Breathing works. If you get the time, then you can use technique again. Reflexology. So the reflexology hand. So you kind of cup your hand. Again, if you've been on my previous webinars, you might have seen this already. If you cup your that point, kind of a circle that's created in the palm of your hand, kind of underneath the link between those. And if you go just about there, you'll start to feel a little bit tender. So it might feel a little bruised. It's your anxiety reflexology point. So again, massage that. You can do it with your fingers as well. I did it really easy with my thumb in, and you can just do circles backwards, however you want to do it, but just massage. When you do that in breathing, that impact. What I'd say to these things stress because when we talk about triggers, so for example, when I was really stressed at work, my boss was horrendous. Excuse me. In fact, this is a different job where I was really stressed. But my boss was horrendous. You just have to get an email from that for my anxiety to trigger. And it wasn't necessarily I read the email. Just as soon as I saw their name ping up in the inbox, I would get that stress reaction. That was a trigger. That coming through became a trigger for my anxiety. Trigger can be positive as well. Or whatever trigger you want, you can do EFT, kind of emotional technique, all based on all around points, places. That's your solar plexus points. You remember me, solar plexus point where all your anxiety reflex on. By managing that, you're giving yourself an energetic massage to your plexus. That when you're not stressed and you start, so I do that. My body sees that as a trigger, relaxing. So you can build into your body. You can teach triggers. So as well as having these negative triggers can be positive. So if you do this, kind of do whatever the trigger that you're going to use is, but the more if you're doing the reflexology, doing the calming them down, at that point, because it will become, in essence, for your body to relax, to give the anxiety. That will be your trigger to tell your mind, chill. In essence, again, it's a process. It takes time for that to happen, but the stronger. So build other things into your journey. Just to take the example of the menopause lady, has a bit of a bad rep. I think it's seen to be, it's seen by some people to be a bit very. It's a really, really powerful thing. If you get it right, it's a really powerful thing. So every journal. I did with this lady I've never done before, and it worked with her. It won't work with everybody. So have a think about how you want to journal. You can journal the negative stuff that happened in your day if you want to. The lady. So what she would do is of all the negative things just to get them out of her head. What I suggested to her doing was that she did it as almost like a paragraph for each negative thing, and we started to reframe the negative. So I'm just desperately trying to example that, but it was reframing. So use CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, to start to read. So for example, there was something about a car parking place, and I'm struggling to remember exactly what happened. The individual had parked in a space, or something happened in this car place. I can't remember, but we somebody not liking her because it had an argument. She sensed that he was angry because he parked in a parking space. He was being personally kind of aggressive to her because of her, and actually started to reframe that. So she sort of took that as what she thought was victimised by being very to her. I started to reframe that, thinking, well, actually, was it to her, or had he just woken up in a bad mood that morning? Has he got that she doesn't know about that personally? So we start to reframe things. I would advise caution in terms of doing this by yourself, because quite you do that somebody else to support you if you're going to journal negative stuff. If that's too far, then just journal positive. Fabulous. So what I would suggest is doing a daily journal. If you love my stationery, a proper lovely little book to write all my journals in. I've got a nice, proper posh pen, and that's my journaling book. I journal every day, and I can't say I do remember to do it every day. To journal every day. Down a list of positive things. So if you encroached, that's not the right word, but if you're enveloped in self, if you're, it's how you manifest, write 7 positive things about yourself. If it's your job that's bringing stress, this is why it's important to understand what causes your anxiety. It's causing anxiety, write down 7 positive things about your job. If it's your relationship, write down 7 positive things about your relationship. If it's all of them, write down seven of them, because again, chance stress and anxiety. So that does sounds daft, but again, it's our brain. Actually, there is really to worry about. We've got a lot of stuff going on in your anxiety, but actually, all of this stuff that's triggering your anxiety has positive aspects to it as well. So it kind of brings down our stress vibrations, if you will. It reminds in every situation, as well as see things in every situation. It able to look more realistically at things as well, because in that heightened, well, if you're like me, stress and anxiety mode, struggle to see the positives. You just focus on the negatives a lot of the time. See the positives, remind yourself that actually things aren't that bad. So if it's endometriosis, it's causing stress, write down 7 things about your endometriosis. You might begin 7 positive things about your endometriosis, but actually they will, and that can be something as simple as getting on top of it. And that also leads me to things like this as well. If you have anxiety is by feeling that you aren't good enough, simply writing on a daily basis, I am enough, can be really powerful. Our bodies listen to everything else tells us, and our mind listens to everything that you tell it. You are in control to your mind. You are in control of your beliefs. We feel it quite a lot of the time, especially if you're sensitive, empathetic. Then we feel as if we're kind of in control, and we pick up things from people. You're in control of the narrative of your brain. So narrative on a daily basis, again, it's a process. It isn't easy, it does, but if you're changing the narrative, you can change your response to what is triggering you. So for example, you might hate your job, but actually your job is giving you good money. Your good money is enabling you to do X, Y, and Z. So there's always positive. If you're in the positive, things become less stressy. Now. So simple things to calm yourself down. What I do as well, if I'm feeling just a little, for want of a word, so I a ritual calms me down. And again, it's probably control. It gives me an element of my life that I can control. So I put a little ritual into whatever I'm doing. So for example, if I journal, if I'm feeling anxious, then I'll have maybe some essential oils, a couple of crystals, I'll put some music on, and I know that as soon as that ritual starts, that starts to reduce my stress. Struggling with sleep. Remember, I can't see the previous message now, it's gone. What I've done. All the messages have just gone now. Sorry about that. I don't know if you can see them. Oh, it was anyway. So yeah, I can't. If you put in the original message that there was an issue with you or getting to. Sometimes people struggle to get to sleep. Sometimes people struggle if they're waking up to get back to sleep. So just having a little ritual there can help with your routine. If you're up, quite people don't have any issues with sleep at all, but they wake up really tired or with that of stress, anxiety. So sometimes in that case, I recommend maybe journaling on a morning, or if you wake up in the morning with your journal for, providing you're journaling the positive things. Because if you're journaling the positive, then you will find things and calm anxiety down. Okay, and then the last point here, I've still got another couple of bits, a couple of I think I talked about sleep actually. But the last of the 5 top tips is keep your vibrations. So when we talk about being happy, that's in being in a high vibration state. Again, that's a whole webinar, right? But we talk about being happy and being high vibration. So really, really simple ways of making sure that you're keeping yourself high vibrationally is to get the negative talk. Now, talked about rhetoric about endometriosis and how impactful that can be. But one of the things that I talk about is surrounding yourself with more positive people So, and I give example, I always feel really bad about this, but I give the example of Facebook groups for endometriosis because there is so much angry and negative around endo. Quite often these places can be breeding ground for stress and anxiety because you're reading horror what other people go through, and if you're empathetic, I've been using it the whole time, but if you're an empathetic sensitive person, then that's added to your anxiety. And if you're not particularly empathetic, even if that isn't part of your makeup, just reading people's negative comments will have a negative on you as well. Limit the time you spend in forums such as that. Find more positive places to be. In terms of support information, there are a lot of good information that's given out there, and it can be quite a good support for people. So if you do find it supportive, if it's a positive, then don't limit it. Limit it that you're having a negative. Also, there's other places that are endometriosis related. So if your local group, and a lot of these neighbourhood groups can get quite vicious at times. So impact. Again, notice the impact that what you're doing is having. Watching the news, that a lot. Limit the negativity. Limit things that are triggering your anxiety. Eliminate if you can. Same as relationships. So that this lady who was dealing with her relationship, obviously, to come out is an extreme thing. So we talk about limiting it, framing the behaviour in your mind, limiting the extent of what it is that causes the negativity that causes the stress and anxiety. Make your vibration. So if you like music, pop on with your favourite tunes on, so that if you've had a bad day, rather than come used to when I'm in my workplace opening a bottle of wine, down and mulling things over, pop on a playlist of your favourite song, dance around, do things, read things that keep your vibrations that high, that make you happy. Quite often we forget because I'm not in the mood, but actually doing things that you're not in the mood for can move. Holistic view, but good sleep. So good sleep is vital to tackle endometriosis, but if we're going to tackle anxiety as well. So have a good, constant, positive bedtime routine. So again, you've probably heard me talk specifically on, so you might well have seen that. Constant bedtime routine. Your body to get ready. Your body starts to get ready for bed. Sleep 2 hours. So just bear that in mind when you're kind of faffing or whatever it is before you go to bed. Plenty of water. Make sure you're nice and hydrated. Again, if you're waking anxious, if you're waking up feeling bloated, then dehydration could be an issue. So make sure you're drinking and run to bed. Keep on for about half an hour, maybe an hour before. Don't drink too much, otherwise you'll get up and weak. But nice water. And again, people, back from a new client, I'm not drinking too much water at the moment because it's cold. If it's cold, just drink boiled water. Heat your water up with boiled water. It's an acquired taste, getting used to it. Even if you put lemon in it, keep yourself hydrated. Don't do any exercise. If you have a hot bath, don't have a hot shower just before you get into bed, because that's blood pressure. If you want a bath, have a bath at least half an hour before you go to bed, so you've got time to reacclimatise, to bring your pressure back down. Essential oils, everything like that. A nice, good routine, time routine. If you can, 2 hours before you start going to bed. Screens. I always tell my clients half an hour no phone before you is really beneficial, really helpful. In your sleep. So if you're waking up during the night, why are you waking up? Stress and is it because you've done much and you need to no your sleep. Snoring. One of my major sleep disruptors, scratching, because she's in bed. So what's disrupting your sleep? Sounds quite like the anxiety trigger. People think they know what's triggering. Actually, it might be something completely different. So you know, easy. Get everything out of bed, journal, notepad by your bed, up in the middle of the night when I was stressed at work, or when not necessarily when I was stressed, well, yeah, probably was, but when I had a job, a job, that sounds wrong. When I had a proper job, as my dad would say, I used to wake up at night and think, oh, idea, or oh, I forgot. So I used to keep a pad by my bed, not my journaling, just a book. And I used to think that I'd wake up about on the pad. Everything out of your head, so it's not whirring around. But yeah, during the day, so the more exercise you have, I say movement, because when you do some of those exercises, the last thing on your mind. But the more you can move during the day, the better your sleep. And that links back to the better sleep you have. Well, actually, bad is an impact for anxiety. So the better sleep you can get, the less likely you are to be anxious. Be active during the day, move a lot more during the day. The more you move, the tired you will be in the evening. And I have a friend, sort of friendship. There's a lot to be said about having your bedroom as a beautiful, calm, relaxing space as well. Even if the rest of your house is messy, cluttered, however it is, try and get your bedroom to be a nice, peaceful space for you to relax. The more it's prepared, then the better you will sleep. So that's it. Let me know whether it helped. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'll switch to while you. I'm going to talk about how you can work with me. Just very as well. I'm actually hosting alternative endometriosis. So we're going to have a whole host of. In fact, have I got to? Now, if I've been clever, I know I meant to do this. Yes, I have. Put this on here. Hopefully you should see a little thing there. That shall take you. The link will take the website. There's a little bit of. So it's basically a weekend March, a weekend of people talking about things that not really selling this. People talking. We've got guest experts speaking about topics to endometriosis and playing, avoid managing endometriosis naturally. Avoid surgery naturally. Just bear with me too. We've got all of the speakers, but some of them are. It's been like herding cats trying to get all their stuff. So all of the speakers are yet on the website too that haven't sent their stuff. There's another one. Tickets are on sale now. So it's £36 for the bed. I'll give you access to all of the, as well as there's a Reiki treatment, a guided Reiki meditation on the Saturday night as well. And there's a couple of treatment taster sessions that are going to be going on as well. They're up to £63 rest of March. So if you're interested in that, so no question. Let me know. In terms of working with me, the date, because I've changed how I do things slightly. I still offer my one teaching programs. I work with people anything from 12 weeks, can take quite a lot to bottom things out. So I offer a 12-week. I don't offer a 12-week at all. I offer a one that runs from 12 weeks, anything upwards of 12 weeks, and that's an intense program, and that's to really understand your endometriosis. So getting to the bottom of your core, trigger, your symptoms, everything in terms of optimizing everything and giving you the tools. So I teach you how to do things like the abdominal massage. We do Reiki, you get level 1 qualification, which is self-care. I teach you all the techniques that you will need to your endometriosis for, so that you don't need to keep coming back to people like. I've put group courses there. I don't like anymore. I've kind of read that as mini Halcyon Days programs. There's still a fertility one, there's still a gut health one, there's still a pain management, there's still a recovery surgery. So if you've had endometriosis surgery and you have chances of the egg returning after surgery, then that's a mini. So that's in 7 group courses. Also, I do webinars, I do Reiki training, and I have a community and as well as the summit. So I'm hosting the summit in March, and then after that, I'm going to be launching a DIY framework. It's called the self-treatment process or pathway. I think it's the self-treatment pathway, and it's kind of the same as the one treatment teaching program without the framework. You get access to a full year, and yeah, that's it really. So you get this. You do all the work. You just don't get the accountability of working with me. Some people need that, people don't want that. So it just gives you an alternative version of the one-to-one teaching that you do it yourself. Oh, I hope that has been. If you've got questions, again, chat. I'll still be here a minute or two in the chat. Drop me an email if you'd like to find more working. In fact, let me just see if I've got. If it'll be the right. Oh. Not the most. Oh. So hopefully, call for free. I don't know if that's going to be the right link. It's really the link. I've changed my website. endometriosisexpert.com. So you can website detailed programs are on there. Also free with, and that doesn't necessarily that you have to work with me. It's just a chat to see questions you've got about endometriosis. I'll help in any way I can on the call. If you want to work with me doing one paid, we can chat about that call as well. Any questions? Any that was useful, please feel free to email me afterwards. You get a thing. I've never actually webinar, so I think you get a thing when I hang up as if you've got any email. And thank you very much this morning. It's been a privilege talking to you. If you're watching on replay, thank you for giving up your time, whatever day it is that you're watching replay. Yes, I hope you found any questions in touch. Okay, good luck wherever your endometriosis. It is possible to feel better. It is possible to avoid and delay surgery, and it is your perfectly well with hormonal treatment without surgery and using natural things. It does require a holistic. I'm going to do it just with diet, movement, or just with one treatment. It require a holistic. Look, wherever your journey takes you, good luck. You always keep in touch if you want to. And yes, enjoy the rest of the weekend.